Welcome there, everybody. I hope that you're having an absolutely wonderful day. I'm just going to connect with this so that people on the Facebook can see as well, and just wondering why it's not actually popping up. This event is live now, so I'll have to comment, and I'm on here. So yeah, it should all be going. Thank you for everybody that's tuning in right at this moment in time. I'd like to thank Jackie Beere OBE for being here this evening. I was lucky enough to see Jackie at the Isbourne when I worked there, and one of the books, and she's also written many other books, but this is actually an award-winning self-help book called Grow. I highly recommend it. If you can get to see Jackie live at any point, I highly recommend that as well. Jackie Beere got her OBE from the work that she did with Learning to Learn and Emotional Intelligence for Children. She's got an incredibly interesting story to how she got into why she does what she does now, which we're going to hear about shortly. But what I do like about Jackie's work is that it's really good, gets to the core of the issue, it helps with personal growth and anxiety. And unlike other books, other training you can go on, it really does put everything down into understandable words so we know exactly what Jackie's talking about, because NLP, I love NLP, but it can have a lot of jargon in it. And Jackie Beere doesn't just do NLP, she does a whole load of other tools as well to help get you from that stuck state to desired state and help you to really grow and flourish. So thank you so much, Jackie, for joining today. If you want to say a little bit more about yourself and your journey as well, would be amazing, please.
Hi everybody. Yeah, it's really good to be here, and it's really good to be able to have a chance to share with you a bit about my story and also answer any questions you've got. My story is really goes back to when I was completely phobic about public speaking. I was so scared of speaking publicly. I couldn't even tell a joke in a pub. I couldn't even say my vows in my wedding because I had to mouth them, and people said, "Oh, we didn't hear you," and it was because I had this sort of phobia. Now I was a very extrovert person, so nobody sort of would believe it, even if I told them that I had this phobia about public speaking. But it was anxiety. Basically, it was anxiety, and I let it hold me back for so long, in the sense that I would do anything to get out of it. And I became a teacher, and that's sort of when it started. I sort of had not a major panic attack, but a panic in the middle of a seminar at college when I was doing a degree. And the college said to me, "Oh, have some speech therapy," and it wasn't about that. It was all about anxiety. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that I decided that I didn't want to have to ever again do any public speaking, and that included even feeding back to my small department of 2 or 3 people about a course I'd been on. I was so terrified. My stomach would turn over if somebody said to me, "Oh, Jackie, can you say a word in assembly?" or something like that, and nobody knew about it. It was a top secret. And so I thought, I'll have children. That'll do it. I can just never have to do it again. I'll never have to stand up in front of people again. And so I had a couple of kids, and that was lovely. Apart from the fact that weirdly, my husband, father of my children, sort of caught it off me. And he was a really confident public speaker. And then he had a panic attack, a major panic attack. He was a scientist delivering a seminar. And his major panic attack was so bad, and because he'd never experienced that sort of anxiety before, whereas I'd sort of been living with it for years, he really got very ill and depressed and anxious, anxiety followed by depression. And if I said to you he's now dead, he committed suicide when he was in his 50s, that depression never really went away. It went and then it came back, and he never really understood it. So this has sort of made my life's mission, really, to think, what is all this about? How does this work? How does it work, and how can we not let it hold us back from achieving our potential? So when I went back to work and eventually and got a job as a head of house and in a school, and was working with Key Stage 3 kids. That when I developed my course on emotional intelligence, it was really about how can we help kids, young teenagers, thrive at school and be confident and know how to deal with anxiety and anxious thinking. That got me into NLP, first of all. So I became a sort of practitioner, master practitioner of NLP, and pursued that, and still was terrified of public speaking, but knew that I was going to be on this journey to overcome it, whatever, and started really small, with tiny little things, just being able to sort of go to a meeting and say something, and silly things like that. Anyway, the end result was that gradually over time, I became a head of house. I found ways to overcome my anxieties, which is all in my book, ways to deal with it, ways to make it easy for myself. And eventually I became deputy head, and I became head teacher of a huge secondary school. So 1,500 kids. So imagine how much public speaking I had to do then, lots. And when I'd been a head teacher for a few years, decided my absolute passion was in developing coaching, developing people, personal development, and dealing with mental health issues and wellbeing issues. I left that, and for the last sort of 10 years, I've been a coach, I've been a trainer, and I've been doing public speaking with people all over the world, and huge audiences and leaders and all sorts. I'm not saying I never ever get scared, but I absolutely know how to deal with it now. And I still get anxious, and feelings come. Feelings absolutely come. There's a saying I love, actually, that feelings keep coming just like the waves on the ocean, but it's up to us to decide which ones to surf. And that's something that I think is really helpful, because that's what it's about, trying to decide how we can have that sort of self-regulation, self-command, to be able to choose the right thoughts to go with, instead of going down the rabbit hole. And by the way, social media doesn't help with this, because it feeds our journey into rabbit holes completely. How to understand thinking and how it works. And that's really been my absolute passion, and it still is. And that's why I'm here tonight, because when Paul got in touch with me and he said, "Oh, do you want to come and talk about what personal development and what you've done and the journey you've been on?" I said, absolutely, because people need to know not to be more fearless, to be less frightened of their thinking. That's the answer. Be less frightened of your thinking, and know that every thought you have is pretty much made up. And sometimes your head tells you lies, like, "Oh, you're useless, you can't do it, you're going to dry up, you're going to panic, you're going to, it's not going to work." You can't, a little thought, a little neural pathway set up in your head, and you start believing it, and it becomes a cognitive bias. And when you've got a cognitive bias, it becomes a belief. Like with me, I can't do public speaking, so therefore I've framed everything around, well, I don't do public speaking, I can't do it, it's too nerve-wracking, it's too scary, people don't know about it, I've got to keep it a secret. No, I tell everybody about it, because I want people to know you can get over it.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you for being honest about your journey and some of the more painful things. So I really do, because I think when you are honest, that really does help people. I had an idea of questions, and I am getting up some people saying sorry late. There's actually lots and lots of you watching, so I really actually appreciate every single one of you. I try and mention you by name as I can, but we've only got an hour with Jackie, so I really want to make sure this is good quality time for all of you. And I was going to actually go on to mindset and fixed mindset, but I think hear what you said and what you said at the beginning, I like, and something which I didn't really know about, and it wasn't taught to me on the NLP that I was taught, but I heard it on your talk when you gave to the Isbourne, and also as well in your book. It's the Jahari Window, and I think that is so key for moving yourself from a stuck state to desired state. put in the framework of anxiety and growth. Can you explain the Jahari window to me, please?
Yeah, I mean,
Other
the
people
Jahari
watching.
Window is so simple, really, but it's basically it's really a model originally of self-disclosure, and it's a bit like you said, Paul. When you are honest, I mean, all those years I kept hidden all my fears, and to be honest, my first husband, father of my children, the reason he could never get over his depression, his anxiety, was because he would not share it with the world. He would not talk about it. He would not get it out of his head. So it all went on inside his head. That is very dangerous. And I that's why I do coaching now, to try and help people realize that when you have thoughts, if you get them outside your head, as in a journal or talking to people, what happens is that you suddenly think, hang on a minute, is that really true? Because believe it or not, a lot of our thoughts are absolute load of rubbish. We've got these saboteurs who get inside our head and start telling us, judging us and self-judging and making us feel insecure. And what the Jahari Window does is say that there's all this public self. It's sort of a window with 4 panes, and the first left pane is the public self, what everyone knows about you, your identity, really, that you share with everybody. It's who people think you are. It's your name. It's your look. It's your clothes. It's your job. It's all those things. But the thing about it is that on opposite to that, in the Jahari Window, there's the blind bit, if you like. So there's the bit that other people know about you, but you don't know about yourself. And often when I'm training people, coaching leaders particularly, I often say, "Oh, you're here on the course with me today, and I wonder what they're saying about you back at school or back in your business." And some leaders will say, "Oh, I don't want to know. I'd rather not know." And I say, "Well, you know what? It's better to know than not know." So the blind bit is, how often do you ask people honestly, how am I doing as your coach, as your teacher, as your leader, as your parent, as your friend? How am I doing? Give me some feedback. And really, then if you can take that, if you can actually be willing to seek out feedback about how am I doing, how's it going, then you understand, you get more self-awareness. So that's the blind bit that we need to open out a bit more. And then there's the hidden bit, the bit that you hide, the bit that's sort of almost like you don't want people to know. Like me, my fear of public speaking. For me, that was absolute top secret. And if I ever told him, I'd say, "Don't you dare reveal it," because I was frightened. People would sort of be looking for my shaking and looking for me being nervous and scared, and it would make me even more scared. So all the hidden bit was almost like the secrets, the self secrets. And when I'm doing training, I often say to people, just share now. Nudge the person next to you and share one of your top secrets, a mistake you've made sometime, something you're a bit ashamed of, something you feel guilty about. Just share it now, because actually shame and guilt and blame, all of those are your self-judgment. They wheedle away at you, they undermine you, they make you anxious, they make you insecure. And so when you share them, you can sort of be honest, and you can say, "This is what I've learned from it." You can get other people's opinion, you can be a bit freer. So the Jahari Window means opening up that public self to the blind bit, to getting feedback, the hidden bit, being honest with people about how you're feeling, what's going on, what mistakes you've made, what you might feel a bit guilty about. We've all got secrets. We've all got things we've done we're a bit ashamed of, but the worst thing is to hide them away and lock them away and feel bad about them. Actually, what you need to do is get them out, learn from them, show you've learned from them. The last bit of the quadrant, actually, of the 4 parts of the Jahari Window, is your hidden potential. And it's interesting because way back when I was still a nervous wreck, in my 20s, I went on a course. Somebody sent me on a course which was about leadership, and we did a big questionnaire thing. And this questionnaire thing went away and came back and said that I had something like 98% of the qualities needed to be a great leader. And it was such a shock to me. I thought, oh my God, you know, there's my judge telling me you're useless, you can't even speak to people in public. And there was this form saying, sowed a seed in my mind. Well, maybe if I was a bit more fearless, I could be a good leader. And that sowed a seed. And then when I was on my NLP Master Practitioner course, we were doing timeline therapy, and we were sort of coaching each other and asking, looking at the timeline and putting things into our future timeline. And it was like the first thing I put in my timeline then was, well, I'd love to write a book. I've now written, I think, 18 books. And so I put that in. I thought, oh, it's so silly. I've just put that book in there, but, you know, how silly. And then they said, no, come on, push yourself even harder. What are you going to do that's even bigger, even a bigger, most ridiculous ambition? And I said, well, I'll tell you something absolutely ridiculous and laughable. That was that I would ever become a head teacher. I was a teacher at the time, a head teacher. And I put that in there. And you know what? That was when I was probably 25, 26, 27, 28, something like that, and still a nervous wreck. And it all came true. So I must admit, that hidden potential bit of the Jahari window, it's almost like, you know, have dreams and put them in your timeline, and think about where you would, where you'd be if you were absolutely fearless, if you didn't let fear get in the way of all the things you might want to do. I didn't even want to be a hair teacher, and by the way, I didn't really like it that much because there's a lot of meetings, so that's why I left and became a trainer. But I'm so glad I did it, because it was such a fantastic experience, you know, running a school with 150 staff and 1,500 kids. It was amazing, but it was very scary. But it was amazing experience. So yeah, so that's Jahari Window, is just push back those windows. You know, get more feedback, reveal more about yourself, and step into the unknown of your potential. Say yes to everything. That's what I've always done. Every time somebody asks you to apply for a job or do something, just say yes. And that's what I've done. And some things, as I say, when I said yes to becoming a head teacher, I thought, why the hell would you want me to be a head teacher? It was a bit of a shock when I got the job, but it was a fantastic learning experience.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm getting a lot coming up on Facebook, and there's lots of questions coming up. So I do seriously apologise if I don't get a chance to ask every single one of every single one of your questions. So I've just scrolled back a bit to see when it's Sam, that wonderful lady. I have lots of thoughts in my head. I suffer from PTSD and severe depression. I have good days and bad days. When you have clients that have PTSD, depression, good days and bad days, what are some of the tools, techniques, advice that you can give them?
Well, the first thing is that it's interesting because we're all in a bit of trauma because of COVID. I mean, there's sort of like a worldwide trauma because of COVID, and so I've been reading quite a lot about trauma because I deal with trauma. Obviously, my own children had the trauma of their father killing himself when they were in their early 20s, which is huge. So I've always been very interested in that, and I read something really interesting about post-traumatic growth. And by no means am I ever belittling trauma and PTSD. Is, you know, absolutely devastating. But what the research shows was that post-traumatic growth is possible. And we know that there are people that react differently to trauma. I always think of Katie Piper having acid thrown in her beautiful face and surviving it and managing to make it into something that has made her thrive and be such a support to other people who've been through trauma. And they said that the secret to post-traumatic growth is actually as simple as this: the people that grow post-trauma are those that believe that can happen. It's as simple as that. That actually believe in your mind that all that awful stuff that's happened to you, and I've had trauma myself, can actually help you grow and help you see it as almost like a gift to grow you. And that's hard to do that, but if you can do that, that really does make all the difference. And I have found I've just qualified as well as a positive intelligence coach, which is Shirzad Shamin is the guy's name who wrote the book Positive Intelligence. And he out of all the work I've ever done, he gives the most practical tools for understanding how your thoughts, and let's face it, we have between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a day. So it's our decision to choose, or to get in the habit of choosing, which thoughts to go with. And so the advice, the strategy for knowing which thoughts to go with, are first of all to understand which of your saboteurs are going to advise you when you have a thought come in, whether to take any notice of it. Because a thought will come in. I'll give an example of my, I mean, maybe a thought might come in into my head about, oh, I wonder if I'm going to get anxiety. I have a lot of airport anxiety. I wonder if I'm going to be late to the airport. I always have to get there really early. It's ridiculous. It's all about being late. It's an anxiety thing. And I can have that thought, oh, you're going to be late. And I could feel it here in my chest, and I could feel it in my tummy, and I want to be really, really early. And I know that's just not going to help, because all I'm doing is sort of giving into it. It's that OCD when you give in to checking you've locked your door 13 or 14 times. It doesn't help. All you're doing is throwing your survival brain a few breadcrumbs of comfort. Oh, you've checked your door, but next time you probably have to check it 14 times. So actually what it is recognizing the thought that comes in that says, Jackie, you're going to be late. You're going to miss the plane. It's going to be a disaster. You're not going to make the meeting. You're not going to make the presentation. It's recognizing that sometimes is an absolute blatant load of bull. It's just rubbish. It's lies. And when that thought comes in, that will be one of your saboteurs actually telling you a lie. And once you start to realize that your thoughts are not always true, a lot of them are just absolute lies. And my saboteurs, I mean, there's Shirzad Shamin talks about, I think, 9 saboteurs, and one of mine is hypervigilant, which is the anxiety thing, looking out for trouble. Where's trouble? Where? How am I going to be in danger? How am I going to get it wrong? How is it all going to be a disaster? That's my hypervigilant saboteur telling me, making me overcautious, warning me when I don't really need to listen. I probably only need to listen to 20% of what that voice is saying to me. And I need to get in the habit of having a strategy. And the strategy I use, and Shirzad Shamin, and I found it very useful, is to put my fingertips together. And when I have a thought that is an anxious thought, a hypervigilant thought, is to put my fingertips together, close my eyes, and just for 10 seconds, focus on the feelings in my fingertips, the lines on my fingertips, to get myself right out of my head and into my body, noticing the feelings in my fingertips. Put my hands on my tummy and just feel my breath. Just take a couple of breaths, and immediately, for me, that's become an anchor, like an NLP anchor, right back into, it's okay, don't worry about it, don't listen to it, shut up, shut up, thought, and don't go down that rabbit hole. And I think it's a path, and it's a habit, and it's a neural pathway. And if you've established a neural pathway, a habitual response of listening and taking notice of that self-judgment, those saboteurs. Another of my saboteurs is my restless saboteur. My restless saboteur is always saying to me, oh, Jackie, this is boring, do something else, now do the next thing, now do the next thing. That's why I've done loads of courses. That's why I've had loads of jobs, because that's just my nature. I was on the next holiday, I'm in Spain at the moment, by the way, and I'm going to Dubai in a couple of weeks, and I'm just, but I know that my restless saboteur sometimes stops me being in the moment, enjoying life in this moment. I'm always planning the next event. My other saboteur, by the way, and if you're interested in all this stuff, Shirzad Shamin's stuff, it's really good. You can go on his website and you can do your own tests and see what your saboteurs are. But my other saboteur is controller. With, bossy, controller, want to control everything, want to control my kids, even though they're grown women now. I've got 3 daughters. I want to control. When I was a leader, I wanted to control everything because I thought I knew how to do it best. And it's very addictive being a controller. I wanted to control everything, but it also creates anxiety because when you see other people not doing things right, it's why aren't you doing it the way I do it? And sometimes other people need to learn to do it their own way. And my New Year's resolution is to be less controlling of my daughters. So that's one of the things I'm working hard at. But yeah, so on the post-traumatic stuff, I'm not belittling it at all. I'm just saying, and having the good days, I would say on those good days, really tune into that, because that's when you're on the, I'm sort of in a mirror here, but that's when you're in that part of your brain is optimistic, is creative, is wise, is empathetic. And when you're in the bad days, you're in survival, which is guilt and blame and self-judgment. And if you can do a little physical, get into your body by doing a little physical action, it means you get out of that side of your brain, that side of your brain, yeah. Get out of that side of your brain and into the side that is optimistic and creative. And it's a habit, and you need to do it often. And it's mind management, and it's well-being, and it's mindfulness. But it's mindfulness that I find a lot easier to do than staring at a blank sheet of paper and trying to read my mind of thoughts, when I find that quite hard. So I suggest fingertips and breathing, and just that whole thing of just pausing and choosing not to go down that rabbit hole.
So, Sam's just replied to that, said, Paul has helped me a lot. He is seriously amazing. He was a my friend. And I'm sure as well, what you just heard from Jackie, if you really apply what Jackie says, then I really do feel that, what you just said, go back and rewatch this again. That will really, really, really help. And I'll be in contact soon anyway, Sam. So I've got loads of questions. There's so many people on here at the moment that I will, instead of, because you mentioned names, I will go back and thank you after this live for watching. This is Exploring the Afterlife. I can read that out. To be honest, I'm nervous when it comes to meeting new people, but I do hide it well. But my smile can hide a lot. I think that's true for a lot of people. Now, I have heard fake it until you make it, but sometimes people also as well keep telling themselves they're a liar as well. So from that perspective of people's hiding behind their smile, what can help them so their smile's more genuine, or maybe more honest with themselves as well?
I must admit that, the fake it till you make it, I've got to say that I absolutely used that when I first started my journey to confidence, to public speaking. I knew that there was still part of me, that voice in my head, if I allowed myself to think it, would be saying, you're going to dry up, you're probably going to collapse and have a panic attack. Nobody wants to hear you. And I put on the show of faking it, and pretend to enjoy it. And I'll talk a bit about visualization here, because in my book Grow, I've got some scripts for visualization, and when I'm coaching people, I always do a visualization. I include my PQ reps, what's what they call PQ, positive quotient reps. I include those now in my visualization. But visualization is sort of a bit like faking it. And so I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to talk about, the masking thing, which doesn't help. But so fake visualization. In our brains, memory and imagination are very, very closely linked. So, for example, when you say you went out on the street and you got mugged and it was absolutely horrible and it really was traumatic, and then you came in and somebody said, tell me about it, and then you told them about it, and you would feel it again, and you'd feel the same pain, and you'd cry, and you'd feel the same suffering. Because when we imagine, because obviously the retelling, which is why they say when you go to court and talk about a horrible incident, you almost like are traumatized all over again. So the whole point is that when we imagine things or retell them or think about them in our heads, we are experiencing it again. The brain is experiencing that absolutely in the same way as if we really experienced it. So a lot of work I do, especially for friends when they're going for interviews and things, I would take that to the level of making that into a positive by saying, okay, you've got an interview tomorrow. You've already failed the last interviews. You say you're rubbish at interviews. Let's take you through an interview so that it goes absolutely brilliantly. And then I'll take them through a visualization of lots of detail, backing, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. We'll go through what you see, what you feel, what you do in order to go for this interview, and how you prepare, and how it all went well, and seeing yourself smiling and enjoying it and feeling confident. That has worked so well in so many occasions. In fact, I did it when I was a head teacher. I did it with my 250 year 11s before they went to their exam, visualizing their exam going well. We went into great detail. I said to all the kids, do you want me to hypnotize you to pass your exam? And they all said, yes, miss, yes, we do. And they all sat quietly, apart from one boy who was giggling at the back. They all sat quietly and went through this visualization of everything from the morning they got up for their exam right through. And you know what? I needed my exams to go up that year, and they really did. So whether it was that or not, I don't know. But the visualization works. And I always do it whenever I'm coaching people. I go through that. I say, right, what is it that's your biggest challenge this week? And we'll go through a visualization process. Because when you go through the visualization process of doing it in your head, your brain thinks you've just done it. Now, that is exactly how I overcame my fear of public speaking, through visualization myself. So I went through again and again, faking. I absolutely love public speaking. I love being in front of an audience. It absolutely thrilled me. It was my mission in life to do public speaking. And I went through 10, 15 minutes in the night, seeing myself, loving it, enjoying it, being good at it. And my brain in the end believed that I loved it, I enjoyed it, and I was good at it, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But what happens usually, and what had happened before, was I was mentally rehearsing all this stuff in a way that was negative. I'd be dreading the moment when I dry up, dreading the moment when someone would laugh and I'd think they were laughing at me or whatever. So we are in the habit, us humans, of mentally rehearsing it in ways that undermine us instead of in ways that empower us. So, that's where fake it to make it does sort of work. You can fake it in your head, and you can convince your brain that this is safe. Because your survival instinct is hugely powerful. And therefore, if it thinks you're in danger, if it thinks public speaking is a threat, it will make you panic, and your heartbeat and your adrenaline go, and your nervous system will crank up. And that's what a panic attack is. But if you've convinced your brain, this is safe, this is good, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So fake it to make it really works like that. But where it might be something that you want to avoid, I mean, I think now I look back on it, my first husband, was autistic, and my daughter, one of my daughters, maybe, and my granddaughter definitely is, and she is 8 now, and she's beautiful and so lovely, and she has those autistic tendencies, and we're all on the spectrum, we all are. But one of the things about having autism is that you can sort of mask, try and copy how other people behave in order to fit in, because we all want to fit in. And I suppose that's where it might, if you constantly have to mask and you're copying to fit in, and somehow it still doesn't quite work, that's when it could cause that incongruence, that sort of sense of, am I being who I really am? And so that's where it might be tricky to mask. And I was watching that program. I hope any of you that are interested saw the Paddy McGuinness and Christine McGuinness program about their 3 children that are autistic. So obviously I watched it with great interest. And And she did a test. His wife had found out that she was quite high up on the autistic spectrum. She said it made her understand why it never quite got it right in terms of her social interactions. And actually, it's realizing that whoever you are, the first thing is, the most important thing is, you are okay. Who you are is enough. Who you are is okay. Who you are is the best thing in the world. And it's loving yourself. It's only when you start judging yourself and trying to be something that you're not, that you can get that incongruence and that insecurity. Now you might say, well, Jackie, you're being, you're sort of being completely contradictory here, because you're saying fake it to be a good public speaker, but then you're saying don't be something you're not. And I admit that there's a problem there, but I think the greatest secret of all to share with you is to absolutely have unconditional love for yourself. Have unconditional love for who you are. Don't let that judge's voice make you think you are not good enough. Because whoever you are, whether you find social interaction difficult, or whether you find public speaking difficult, or whether you are someone who is good at this or not so good at that, the secret is to absolutely be kind, loving, and full of empathy for yourself, because you can't give other people empathy and unconditional love unless you can give it to yourself. And I suppose it's the bottom line is in well-being, is and in achievement. If you have unconditional love for yourself, and I don't mean a big ego where you're the big I am. In fact, people with big egos often are incredibly insecure. In fact, most of the leaders, I coach international school leaders, and most of the international school leaders I talk to are hugely successful but incredibly insecure. So actually success has got nothing to do with how confident you are. It's all to do with happiness and joy is actually accepting who you are and being confident in your own skin. I don't know if you agree with that, Paul. I'm sure you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I truly agree with that. And, I'm also as well going to go back over this and take my own notes as well, because there's some really good stuff coming out of this. So I really do thank you, Jackie. I've got another question here, and there's so many questions coming through, so I do hope I get to ask as many of them as I can. But this is Lydia here. She said, I never have cash in my purse. I don't like purse. I don't like that too. That's one thing that bugs me. I don't even know why. I have to hoover 3 times a day. I can't settle and sleep till 7 a.m. because I feel I have to do it one more time. Then when I'm done, I'm fine every single day. So that sounds like OCD. Do you have OCD with people?
Yeah, and the truth is that you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do any of that. And the voice inside your head that is saying, you must do this, you must get up at 7 o'clock, or you must do this 3 times, or whatever. The more you have to be really brave and think, do you know what, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to cut it down. I do know, have people I work with who have this, and it is a decent.
Hopefully Jackie's going to be with us in a second. I hope that's not me that's just paused. If Jackie goes out, then we can get her back in again. So don't worry, you'll be absolutely fine. These things tend to happen at times. Let me just get Jackie out and back in again, and it'll be all completely fine. So let me just try this. Let's get her back out. Hello everyone. I'll get her back on. There we go. You're back on again, Jackie. So I thought it was going to be the Paul Goddard show then for a second.
I was just saying that I think that protective behaviours, what you're describing, all OCD is what we call protective behaviours, and protective behaviours are when you do that you think, oh, if I go back and check, so I've unplugged the hair straighteners, one of my things. If I go back and check it, it'll make me feel better, and it does. You go back and say, oh, phew, I did unplug them, and then you'll go down the road and think, hang on a minute, did I really go back and check them? And so what happens is you're feeding. I don't know if you've read The Chimp Paradox, another brilliant book by Mike Peters, but he called it feeding your chimp bananas. And your chimp is that voice in your head that's telling you all those lies, those saboteur lies I talked about, saying, "Oh, you won't have, your house is going to burn down," and you go into that, what I call time traveling. Traveling is the future, catastrophic thinking. What might happen if you have left the hair straighteners on? What might happen if you don't do the things or step on the pavement cracks or whatever? And the more you feed it by doing what that chimp is telling you to do, the more it'll make you do more of the same. So the only way is to be brave enough to stop doing it, and to know that, okay, you thought, oh, I've got to go back and check I locked the front door. Well, don't go back and check it. Just carry on with your day. And you know what? If you didn't lock the front door, it's probably going to be okay anyway. You have to be able to live with uncertainty. I mean, let's face it, we've had a pandemic. We all need to live with uncertainty. None of us know what's around the corner. We have to be able to surf those waves and just feel that, okay, it's a bit unbalanced, but you know what? It's okay. It's going to be okay. In this moment, I am okay. And I'll deal with whatever comes up when it comes up. And that way is mental health. When you start time traveling, either forward into the future, thinking about the terrible things that might happen if you don't do this or you don't do that, that is just your brain sabotaging your happiness. If you travel back into the past and think, what did I say last night that somebody probably hates me because I had a couple of drinks and I told someone something, and they're probably thinking I'm an awful person. And they're not. They don't even care. They haven't even remembered. So when we travel back into the past, it's regret and remorse and worry. And when we travel forward into the future, it's anxiety about what might happen. Stay in this moment, because this moment is all we've really got. It's all we really know. So there's no point in spending your energy and your time either going forward or going back. That's hard to do, and we all do that time traveling. But when I do my webinars, I do a lot of webinars on well-being, and I talk about not trying to avoid doing time traveling. It really doesn't help. And the other thing that doesn't help is comparison. Comparing yourself with other people and thinking, I'm not as popular, beautiful, successful. As soon as you go down that rabbit hole, that is your self-judge kicking in. And it really is not productive. It doesn't make you happy. It doesn't actually make you develop or grow. You can only grow if you just worry about yourself growing and how you're a bit better than you were yesterday, not trying to compare yourself. And at school, of course, and I know this, that kids start comparing it when they're about, when children are 2 or 3, they don't bother to compare themselves. They start school and it's like, am I as good as, gradually they go up through the school, and by the time they reach the end of primary, it's, they've got all their phobias, all their cognitive bias of belief that they're not good at maths, or they're not good at sport, or they're not good at music, and they start judging themselves, and it's very sad. And actually, mental health is about not judging yourself, but knowing that we're all on a journey to be great learners. And if you can keep being a great learner, that's growth mindset.
I want to add something, and I also want to say about your books, because on here, which I will ask in a second, my good friend Lynn, 18 books, so it'd be good to say about what books you have. But I just want to ask one question before we get into your books and how people can get in contact with you, is that I truly believe personal development, things for mental health, really should be taught in schools. Do you feel if that was taught in schools, because they always say, well, don't worry about bullies, is kind of what I've been told, maybe not this, but they have low self-esteem, they're bullying to make themselves feel better. Do you feel if children right from an early age did things about mental health, did things about growing personally, that there would be a lot less bullying in the school field?
I absolutely know it would be the case, because I've worked in so many schools. I mean, as I said, I was a primary school teacher, and then I went into secondary school, and I noticed how kids had lost their confidence in secondary, and that's why I devised the Learner's Toolkit, because I wanted it to become part of the curriculum. And the reason I became a head teacher is because I wanted it to be in the curriculum. And we set up a whole new Key Stage 3 course that would help kids understand how their brains worked, how their thinking worked, and how they could have more what we call emotional self-regulation, emotional intelligence, and they would understand why it is, how they could defend themselves against the bullying that might happen to them, and how they could grow their well, it's a process of metacognition. I'm sure some of you might have heard it. I'm sure you have heard it, Paul. Metacognition is meta, standing back, cognition from your thinking. And if you ever do cognitive behaviour therapy, if anybody's done that, I'm sure some of you have done it, it will talk about understanding how your thinking spirals in a bad way down those rabbit holes, and metacognition helps you stand back and understand how you're responding to an event or to something that's happened to you, and can interrupt that thinking and reframe it. And reframing, is a really good watchword to bear in mind here, because reframing is growth mindset. It's being able to, whatever's happened to you, whatever someone says to you that upsets you, whatever occurs in your career, whatever interview you don't get, whatever challenge you get in front of you, it's being able to reframe that as a gift or opportunity, even a bad thing. Because if you can reframe it into a gift or opportunity, whatever it might be, then what happens is that you engage that part of your brain that is optimistic and creative and wise, and you to get out of survival brain. When you're in survival brain, that challenge seems like the end of the world, and what it means about me is that I'm rubbish. And so, it is really just a case of trying to be able to reframe and see the gift and opportunity in everything that happens to you. Even when one of the other saboteurs, by the way, is victim saboteur. And victim saboteur is when you think, oh, it's always me, it always happens to me, it's not fair, I've had such a rough deal, and that's a habitual neural pathway, and your brain is implemented it to sort of protect you and make you feel it's okay to feel done down to and misused, and it's just the way it is. But actually, you don't have to feel like that. That is just lies being told to you. You don't have to feel like that. You can forget about that and reframe it and see every challenge you have as a gift and opportunity to grow and to learn and to become stronger. Horrible stuff can make us stronger, as I talked about post-traumatic growth. It can happen. So yeah, I forgot what the question was.
No, you answered it very well.
Yeah, and I'll just show you my Learner's Toolkit. This book, The Complete Learner's Toolkit, has got lessons in metacognition and mindset, and basically it's 36 lessons that you can teach kids in classrooms, and a lot of schools are using it now for their to teach kids everything from 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds really, 9-year-olds upwards. But a lot of parents have bought it as well to use with their kids at home, and it's got things like how to understand your brain and how it works, and it's got things like being able to how to be more confident and how to have more empathy. Actually, how to understand what empathy is and how to get more of it, and also things like mood control. How to understand, why do I get in a bad mood, and what's that about, and how do I want to manage that and self-regulate it? Because all the evidence is that people that can self-regulate their emotions are happiest and most successful in life. So in terms of personal development, if you can self-regulate, if you can understand how not to lose your temper, how not to go down that rabbit hole of anxiety, and get in that good mental habit, that's well-being. It's what Shazad Shamin calls mental fitness, and I love that. It's almost like, we go to the gym and we try to, we know that if we don't go to the gym every week, or at least go for a walk and keep fit physically every week, we're going to get less fit, we're going to get all our muscles are going to, to be destroyed. Same with our brain, and same with our mental fitness. We have to constantly keep working on our self-regulation, on our mental fitness, because that way we become stronger and stronger. And I suppose all my lessons in the Learner's Toolkit, they're useful for everyone. And do you know what? I would say that when I taught this, because I taught all this stuff for 10 years to kids, for teenagers, and then I've taught it for 20 years to teachers and to school leaders. And I think I have learned more by teaching this stuff. Every time I teach it, I learn something new from it. So it's almost like teaching it helps you learn it. So that's my Complete Learner's Toolkit book, which I recommend anybody to buy from Crown House, because it's just useful stuff for everybody to use, adults, children, working together, teams. It's got so many lessons on how to be optimistic, how to manage your thinking. It's even got stuff on how to make your memory work better. And I need that at the moment because I'm getting old.
Brilliant. So I was just going to come to that, and I'd also like to thank Lee for telling me there were more people wanting to become friends so they could watch this. So thank you very much, Lee, and apologise I got that late. So you also got this, which I mentioned at the beginning, the wonderful award-winning book, Grow. So other books that are through Crown House that people could order and get a lot from. There's some people that have got young children for the schooling, some of them I think more written for teachers, and also as well contact details, so people wanting to get in contact with you, book sessions, go to one of your webinars, how they can get in contact with you, please.
Well, unfortunately, just at this time, as Paul pointed out to me, my website has I don't know what's happened to it, but we're onto it now, and we're fixing it. And I hope that my website, which is just JackieBeere.com, is it will be up and running by the end of the week, they tell me. So it's just Jackie Beere, all one word.com. That's my website, and on there as well, there are loads of downloadable. Like there's a self-assessment for your resilience. There's a whole massive load of strategies for well-being and for metacognition and all those sorts of things. There's activities you can do with teenagers and kids as well. And there's some of the lessons from my Learner's Toolkit book. And there's loads of articles that I've written about well-being and self-help and metacognition, all those sorts of things. So there's lots of articles I've written on there as well. But as I say, sorry about that. It's not very, very useful that it's gone down the last couple of days, but it should be up and running by the end of the week. And anyone that wants any advice can email me on JackieBeere@gmail.com. At the moment, I coach people, and I'm quite a bit full up at the moment. But if you think, I'm a great believer in coaching. And what's coaching? It's really just having an opportunity to have someone reflect back your thinking to you, so that you can see how your thinking is helping or hindering you moving on. And so even if I'm not available, and I am pretty chocker at the moment with clients, but I know some absolutely fantastic coaches who really can help and can offer to help if people need coaching. And we'll give you a free chemistry call. We'll give you a free chat to find out if you could work with them. So I know lots of coaches. I did a course. My restless Saboteur makes me do lots of courses, and I did a course called The Inside Out Revolution. A guy called Michael Neal, something else I recommend. It's not my book, but I recommend it's a podcast. It's called Caffeine for the Soul, and it's by a guy called Michael Neal. And Michael Neal was actually, you know him, Paul.
I've seen him live, yes.
Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic. And he does Caffeine for the Soul. That's such a good podcast. And he wrote a book called The Inside Out Revolution. And basically, it's all about the fact that every bit of our experience in this life is created inside our own heads. And there's only one thing you could change. Whatever your life is like at the moment, there's only one thing you can really change, and that is the way you see it, the way you see your life, the way you're creating your experience of this world. And therefore, that's the one thing you can always change. And that's the inside out revolution. It means that we tend to blame all our worries and our problems on the pandemic or on our job or our boss or our family or money or whatever it might be. But the truth is that the thing that really will change your life is the way you see all those things mentioned above. And it's so powerful to work on your mindset, so that and it's a journey. You know, I'm still on it. I'm absolutely still on it. I had a little in my book Grow, the one that this one. There's a story about my temper and about how I threw, when my kids were teenagers, I threw an absolute, my husband calls it now, my present husband now calls it going nuclear. I threw a piece of lamb at my 12-year-old daughter. And the air was blue with F words, because I just lost my temper, and I have got this very, very fierce temper. And I sort of used to think it was powerful, and I used to think it was like, well, people are scared of my temper, and they were. My whole family was scared of my temper, and I thought it was like a strength. And I haven't lost my temper now for about probably maybe 8 years, because I now realise that is not good. It's not good. It's shameful. And I wrote the story in that book. And you know, all my girls ever say to me is, "Oh well, Mum, you remember that time you threw that joint of lamb at us, and you lost your temper?" And I say, "Hang on a minute, I have been quite a good mum generally." So we all have those moments, and I still can have a moment of feeling the red mist come up and wanting to strike out and be angry. But I absolutely know that I have never been as happy and joyful and full of absolute joy of life since I've been able to stay in the moment and not have that sort of losing the temper, of that time traveling, that listening to my saboteurs judging me and having a go and judging other people as well, because that's really where your temper comes from, being angry, really angry that other people aren't doing what you want them to do, whatever it might be. So so I recommend you know, reading this book, Grow, of course, because it is the book I wrote. Most of my books have been for teachers, but that book I wrote because I just wanted to share the experience I've had since. I wish I'd known about when my first husband had that terrible spell of depression, and which he never really quite recovered from, and ended up, as I say, taking his own life. And I never want anyone to feel that bad, that as he did throughout most of his life since he had that bad time. And there's no, you know, anxiety. It's okay not to feel okay sometimes, but once you understand and get conscious of your thinking, it's getting conscious of your thinking is the secret. Getting conscious of your thinking, it will really help you to get, I say this, don't get mad, get curious. It's a nice mantra. Don't get mad with other people yourself. Get curious, like, oh, why am I thinking like that? How's that working? Why is it working like that? How can I deflect that? Can I do some PQ reps? Can I go for a walk? Can I distract myself from that thinking, because it's not being helpful?
Absolutely. I've had Claire, lots of people saying they'll do this. Claire, yes, of course you can put it on your website. I think because we're very rapidly approaching the hour, I think I'm going to do one more question and get you to give your detail out of how people can email you. This is one, I'm going to cut it down because it's a reply back to somebody as well, but it's a mental issue, and it's to do with can't drive in, and just got to beat my own brain. Just always had overactive imagination. I see cars coming flying of outside streets that aren't even there. So I guess that, you know, the imagination, I know what it's like in my own work as well, the imagination can make things 1,000 times worse. So to get people off that negative loop of imagining the worst.
It's interesting, and especially the worst time is at 3 o'clock in the morning. You notice that your imagination really you imagine things at 3 a.m. and we make people think, what the hell was that? What was I thinking? I was making stuff up. So what you say to yourself is, I'm actually making stuff up here. I'm making stuff up, and you then absolutely know that your imagination is a superb, fantastic, lovely, wonderful, creative aspect of your personality, and it can be used in such a positive way that the best thing to do with that is write it down. I mean, if you are having crazy mad thoughts, write them down, keep a journal, and it's one thing that really helps people's mental health. And when you're writing your journal, my last top tip, if you like, when you're writing your journals, make sure you write down 2 or 3 things that you are grateful for, because that will ground you in your values. We haven't talked much about values, but if you want to ground yourself in those values, that things that really matter. So write down something you're grateful for about your life, something you're grateful for about yourself, your personality and who you are, and something you're grateful for about your situation and maybe your family, just because gratitude is the absolute antidote to anxiety. Gratitude is the absolute antidote to depression. When we're grateful, we stay in the moment, we appreciate, we see the gift and opportunity. So writing it down, especially when it's mad thoughts, will make you look at them and think, what was that? And it will make you have that reality check and realize I had these mad thoughts, but maybe I'll make them into a novel one day, and I'll keep writing them in my journal and add in that little bit of gratitude meditation, that little bit of gratitude, because gratitude is a great place to be in if you want to be mentally well, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. Just one thing before I say get you to say your web address again, so people can get in contact with you. And as you said, you've got a group of people that you can highly recommend as well. Is that one of the reasons why the Jahari Window resonated with me is to also go out and do things which are fearful to you. Now you probably see me stumble quite a few over some of these things people are writing, but I'm actually hugely dyslexic, and I really struggled at school because of the dyslexia. And just before I even started this journey, I would have been absolutely terrified of reading absolutely anything out at all. In fact, I wouldn't have done it. I might have even put it up and said, no, if you read that one yourself. So I think that, to continue to grow doesn't mean you're absolutely just 100% fixed. It just means that you'll keep constantly moving forwards in the right direction. So I have to thank NLP, and I have to thank loads of wonderful people like Jackie and all the wonderful self-development people I've seen over the years that have helped me get over that fear. So Jackie, do you want to give your email out again one more time?
Yeah,
so if anybody else...
Well done you for and it's being fearless, and it's realizing even if you get it wrong, doesn't matter. Nobody minds. It's just, I'm fearful about tech. I mean, you know that because I came on with you before. Went, oh my God, we've all got those fears, and actually, it's only by realizing, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, like you've done, that actually you grow. So
yes.
My as I said, my website's JackieBeere.com, and it's not quite up and running at the moment, but it will be. So just make a note for next week or something to have a look at it. There's lots of resources on there, and
I'll share it out too.
And my email address is JackieBeere@gmail.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Everybody. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for listening as well. Adam Lloyd, nutrition expert and personal exercise expert, will be on next week. I'm just arranging the exact date with him at the moment. Thank you everyone for watching, whether you're watching in the daytime or evening, wherever you are in the world. Have an outstanding day and evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Jackie.